Hello everybody. Today's video is about the Olympus 35 SP. I did a short video on how to load film into the SP in my last video, but this is now more of a review and a history of the camera before I send it back. A friend of mine called Clive, who I chat with regularly about film cameras, kindly sent me this camera, and so I've loved using it. And before I send it back, I thought I'd give you my thoughts and do a quick review and talk through how to use the camera. So if you get one, hopefully this video helps you understand how to use the camera. Okay, so brief history on the camera. It was made from 69 to 75, weighs about 600 grams. It's got dual metering, so it has spot metering here. So you hold that down when you're taking a picture and just spot metering. And it's got auto exposure, so you can set the camera to fully auto, which I'll come to in a minute. The lens is 42mm 7 element lens. It's a fast f1.7 lens, and the way that you use the camera is there are 3 rings. You have shutter speed, aperture, and then a focus ring, but I'll come to that in a minute. And it has a light meter, but you don't need to use the light meter. The battery powers the light meter, nothing else really. Although when it's in fully auto, then the kind of battery is getting involved there, but you can completely manually set your shutter speed and aperture and shoot away without any batteries in the camera, and it will work fine. So it's got some of the reviews sort of say, I watched a couple of videos and I got a bit confused because they said it had sort of through the lens light metering. So if you're putting filters on and things like that, I thought, oh, that's really good. But when I got the camera, I kind of tried putting my thumb over different parts to see where it's actually metering from, and where it's actually metering from is this little window here. So if you put your thumb over that and look through the viewfinder, you'll see the metering change. It'll suddenly drop down because there's no light going to the meter. So it's actually metering through there. So if you are putting filters on the front of the camera, then the meter isn't going to know about that or compensate for that. So that was just something I kind of worked out when I got the camera. It used to take mercury batteries. I think they were like PX625 batteries, but you can use modern batteries, and then you can get adapters that will adjust the voltage. So when this camera arrived, Clive had kindly put a battery in, which I'll show you now. You just take this off. Hang on. That'll come out. So that's the adapter there. So if I carefully show you, so it's got a all right. So it's got a 357 battery. I'll have to put something in the description that explains this, because it arrived with the battery already in and it was adapted. So it goes in this little adapter that lowers the voltage, is my understanding. And then you just pop that in there. And then, so yeah, you can get batteries and adapt them, which are available. The adapters, as I understand it, are available on eBay and don't cost too much. And then it will meter correctly, which is great. But as I say, you don't need to use the meter if you don't want to. You can just set the aperture and the shutter speed and do Sunny 16, or have an external meter. It has an ASA ISO dial here. So I don't know if you can see, but there's like a little black mark just there and a little red mark just there. So you turn this. So I've got it on 400 there, but if I was shooting 200 film, go like that, and that's where you set the film. Obviously you rewind using that. That doesn't, you might have seen in my last video, that doesn't lift out. That's just for turning the film. So you've got a little lever here, go like that, pull that down, and the back will, normally the back will kind of spring open, but this has had new light foams put in, seals, so it's just a little bit more solid. It doesn't ping like it maybe would have done, but you can see it's got nice new foams in. So yes, you pull that down and you see that moves the little locking thing there, and then you just pop your film in here like I did in the last video, and then you spool it in there. Easy peasy. Right. So I was trying to think if there's anything else before I go through how to use the camera. So the thing that I found with the camera that took me a while just to get my head around, but once the penny had dropped and I understood it, I thought, oh god, this is actually a really good system. Is what you can do is you've got your 3 rings here. So we'll just ignore this is just for focusing basically. So we'll just look at the first 2 rings. So basically what you do is you've got a red dot there and a red line there. And what you do is you line up the A there, and then you line up the little window here, this little cutout bit there, and then if you can see there's an A there, so you've got 2 A's lined up. That's now in fully auto. But if you don't want to shoot in fully auto, say you think, well, I want to really blur the background out, so I'm going to shoot at f1.7, right? And then you're going to have to pick the right shutter speed to shoot at f1.7. So if you're outside and it's a sunny day, you might need to shoot, let's say 500th of a second, let's say. Okay, if you're indoors by window light, then it might be sort of 30th of a second or 60th of a second. Well, how you know whether you're setting the right shutter speed for this aperture, or for example, if you said I want to shoot at 1/25th of a second, how do I know what's the right aperture for that shutter speed? Well, the way that you work this out is there's in the little window here, which as you're moving this around, you'll see that there's like a number that comes up in the window, and that's called like a guide number. So what happens is when you're not in fully auto, you basically set the camera to kind of what you'd like to shoot with. Look at the guide number. So say it says 10 there, and then when I look through here, the light meter, which is here, will show me through there. It has a scale with the guide numbers on, right? So the guide numbers start at let's have a look. The guide numbers start at say 3. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the 3 there, and then they go all the way up like that to, is it 14? So they go up to 14. So in here you've got a guide number from 3 to 14, and the needle moves up and down that guide series, okay, depending on the light. So when I look through here, I've set my aperture to say f1.7, and I look through there and it'll say your guide number needs to be 8. Okay, so whatever I do on here, I need to set that guide number to 8. So if I've got it on 1.7, then I'll move this down to 8. So that now says 8 in there. So I know that 1.7 at 1/25th will get me a correctly exposed photo. Now, same thing would be, say I had this at f5.6 and I wanted to shoot at f5.6. Well, now the guide number's changed to 12, but I look through here, it meters the light, then it hovers, it moves from up and down the scale. It goes, yeah, you want to meter at 8, let's say again. So I now need to change this, so until I get to 8 again. So now I'm on, oh actually that was, there we go, now I'm on 8. So that would be an 1/8 of a second at f5.6. But let's say then I want to shoot at 500th of a second. Okay, so it's at 13. I look through here and it meters and it says, based on the lights, you need to have that guide number say 9. So, but I want to definitely shoot at 500th of a second. So I keep moving this till I get to 9. So it's now on a 9. So you essentially look through there, it tells you the guide number, and then you twiddle the 2 rings, the shutter speed and the aperture, until you see the guide number it's telling you it needs to be on through that little cutout window. Say it says it needs to be on 8, so I go, okay, 1.7 at 1/25th, that's on 8, so that's lined up with what it's telling me it should be on as a guide number. And then I think, well, I still want to meter correctly, so I need that to stay on 8. What I can then do, but I want to change the aperture and the shutter speed, is I can grip both rings together and turn them together like this. So then it keeps that window on 8. So now I'm on f8 at 1/4 of a second. I go, well, that's a bit slow. I want to shoot a bit faster. I want to shoot at a 60th of a second at 1.7. But by gripping them together, I can keep the guide number the same. Or I can just turn that ring independently and then adjust with this one. So that's basically the system. Is look through there, it'll tell you the guide number, and then you set your rings and look at that window. And that's if you want to use it in basically in manual, but with, it's kind of like almost like an uncoupled system really. The meter is uncoupled and telling you based on the light what the guide number should be, and then you can use these rings for shutter speed and aperture to line that up. But yeah, once I'd got my head around that, it was pretty straightforward. I probably used it in auto 80% of the time. What I found was, and I'll put some pictures at the end, is when I was shooting it in auto, I thought it kind of underexposed. The pictures looked a bit washed out and a bit grey. When I used it in manual, so as I just described, so I would look at the reading from the light meter, the guide number, and I would set these and completely just trust that basically. It actually seemed to be better. It seemed to be the pictures came out a bit more nicely exposed, a bit more contrasty. But yeah, no, it's an absolutely gorgeous camera. Once you understand how these rings work on the front for aperture and shutter speed, then it's really straightforward. Focusing, the focus throw is really short, so it means focusing is incredibly quick and easy. And will I get one? Well, I don't think I will unless I see one for a good price. These go for, I think, probably about £150, something like that. And I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a bit much for this camera. And I think the reason why is that I think it's probably, I think if I could get one for kind of £50–60, I think that's an incredible camera, definitely worth it. But the prices that they're going for on eBay, it kind of puts it in the same bracket as other cameras where you can change the lens. And I kind of was thinking about and it's not a hugely heavy camera, but it is a fair size. I wouldn't say it was small. And it kind of made me think, for a camera where I can't change where it's a fixed lens, and it is a fantastic lens, but it's still a fixed lens. So it's was it 42mm? So it's kind of what you see with the human eye actually, because it's nicely between 50 and 35. But for a camera with a fixed lens, I sort of think, oh, it's a bit big actually. And Olympus did do smaller rangefinder cameras. I think, is it the RC or the RD or something? I think I'd be more tempted to go for them, because I sort of think if a rangefinder camera's got a fixed lens, I think I probably want it to be a bit smaller. And so, for example, if I show you the Minolta Hematic F, which is let's see if I can line these up. So I'll show you, which is a much smaller camera, and this it's got a tiny little lens. This is a rangefinder as well, and it's got a light meter in and everything. This has got a fixed lens, but I sort of don't mind that. I sort of think, well, this will really fit in a pocket, whereas you're going to need to take a camera bag for this. This isn't going to fit in a pocket. In fact, if you look at the size of the camera and compare it, it's about the same size. It's slightly smaller, but it's pretty much in the hand, not too dissimilar in size to a Yashica Electro 35. It's maybe just a little bit smaller, but I sort of have a bit of a thing about these rangefinders that are the size of a camera where you can change lenses. I sort of think, well, maybe it'd be better to just buy a camera where you can change the lens, or if you're going for fixed lens, and I think get something a bit smaller. But it is in its own right, without looking at other cameras. I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous camera with a fantastically sharp lens on it, and it's really easy to use. And when you put it in auto, it's like having a point and shoot, but then you've got all that control with the aperture and the shutter speed when you need it. The other thing I was kind of thinking about was, if I take some, so there's no film in it, so it's got quite a loud ping, springy shutter. Which for a rangefinder, I kind of thought, well, that's quite loud compared to what I was kind of used to. If we take the Electro 35, and I've kind of got this for comparison because it's not much bigger. It's just as nice looking camera as well, from a similar era, and it's got light meter in and fixed lens. So if we see how much quieter that is, hasn't got that loud. And I mean, this has got a better lens, I would say, than the Electro 35, and it's a bit more iconic. This is more of a premium version, I'd probably say, than the Electro 35. But I do like that's got a quieter shutter. That reminds me more of the sort of sound, the quietness of a Leica. And if we compare, and this is kind of what I'm saying about cameras with a fixed lens. So this is the M2, Leica M2, and this is Olympus S35, 35 SP, sorry. They're basically about the same size. And obviously it depends what cameras you've already got in your collection. But I sort of thought, when I'm going out, am I going to reach for this when it's the same size as this camera, and I can change the lens on this to a 35 or a 50, whereas with this I'm stuck with 42. And although this hasn't got a light meter, and it's not a fair comparison because it's a Leica, but this isn't actually too dissimilar in size to something like if I took like a Nikon EM with a pancake 50mm lens on. So it's kind of in this middle ground where it's not small enough for me for a rangefinder with a fixed lens, but it's kind of too big. I sort of think, well, I'll just take a camera I can change lenses and have, if I'm going to have a camera bag to carry something around in. Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts really. I think I will, I've really enjoyed using it, but if I see one for a really good price, I'll definitely buy one because I love the lens on this, and some of the photos I got from it were fantastic, and at the end of the day that's what matters. But when I want to take a rangefinder with a fixed lens, I'm going to take the Minolta Hematic F, and these can be had a lot cheaper. And I think that kind of makes it, because of its size, I kind of think that justifies its existence in my camera collection a bit more. And that was it. Thank you very much. If you're liking these videos and my mad rambling rants about different cameras, then like and share, and I shall make some more. Thank you very much.